welcome back to me talking about my version. What? You dislike my intro today? Hi, welcome back to me talking about my version of the Marauders, in podcast form with Emma. Today, oh gosh. Y'all, okay, I got more angry comments on my TikTok today. Did you see those?
No.
I swear, it just takes one person commenting it pretty early, and then all the rest of the comments are, I can't believe she hates the podcast now, and, like, doesn't want to do it.
because you hate it.
It's not that bad, but it just always makes me laugh. I'm like, guys, I'm literally doing my best. Like, you don't understand how much I want the podcast. And they're like, guys, I can't believe she forgot about the podcast. And I'm like, bestie, I didn't forget. Don't worry. But yeah, last week... Sunday, fine. Nothing happened. Monday, I go into school, and my back that has been, like, aching for, like, a month was, like, pain. Sharp pain. All the time. Not just when you're, like, doing something straight. All the time. And it was really, really bad. And so then on Tuesday, I went to the doctor and got x-rays and all this fun stuff because they thought maybe I had, a disc had done something. I don't know. I was fine, but I did, like, tear something in my back. So now I have to go to 6 weeks of physical therapy. And also, I'm on a lot of drugs for the pain. So 0 out of 10 for last week, because then I spent the rest of the day, literally Tuesday, I came home at 10:30 from the doctor's. I went at, like, 8, and then slept for the entire rest of the day. And, like, into the night, and then, like, still woke up late on Wednesday. Like, and then Wednesday, like, same deal. We baked a cake.
Yeah, that was nice.
That was nice. And then I went home and I slept. And then I had to catch up on homework for the rest of the week, and that's why there wasn't a podcast last week, because my back decided to just not
be a back.
It did not want to be a back. But did anything, I feel so bad. I've, like, talked about myself, like, for the past week because I've just been in pain. But has anything interesting or fun happened for you in the past week?
It's been a lot of tests. I think
yes,
I've had
why are there so many tests? But yeah, so I was also dealing with all of those tests and all the homework and stuff like that, and I'm like, I just want to sleep.
But, okay, I think every time we've recorded, like, during the school year, it's been the day I had a calc quiz.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry.
I got a 100 this time.
Yo!
That's good.
Let's go! My birthday is this Friday, so that's pretty exciting.
And we don't have school.
And we don't have school on my birthday, so that's also very exciting. Maybe we'll even record...
We don't have school on my birthday either.
Oh, yeah, because your birthday's in the middle of the summer. My gosh. Yeah, but who knows? And also we might have, if we end up recording this Friday because we don't have school, we might have a guest. She's in my English class. She's really chill, but she found out about my TikTok and looked it up and is like, "Can I be on your podcast?" Yes! And I'm like, "Sure." I barely know her. But she said that she knew you, so it's like it's okay. But yeah, she's like, "You have a podcast with Emma?" And I was like, yeah. But who knows? So I didn't do questions. I feel like maybe we should dive in. I want to have something funny, like leap in, bound in.
I feel like we say this every time.
I know, but I always want it to be funny and creative. Like,
let's maraud in.
Let's just look at verbs.
Let's slide in.
Let's smell in. I like slide in. Let's slide in. We'll do that. We'll look up a new verb every single time.
New verb.
Comment your favorite verb.
Yeah.
All right, let's slide in. Okay, so last time we kind of talked about, so Lily and James kind of had a little bit of an argument, like when they walked back from the thing, and he was like, "Why don't you like me?" And she was like, "I just don't," Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So James has been festering with this. That was on a Friday. He's been so angry about this for like an entire weekend, okay?
Dang.
He's just like, he can't get over it. He's like, I can't believe, she's like actually a jerk. He's like, I can't.
He's like, why did I like her?
Literally. He's like, I can't process the fact that she just was that mean. And, like, it just doesn't compute with him. And then he slowly is, like, getting more and more angry with her. And so he's like, I've literally been nice to her since, like, last year. And she's just
since,
still
like,
being, like...
the end of last year.
She's like, and she's just, like, won't even, like, talk to me. Like, it's just, he's a little offended. But anyway, and also he's just kind of noticing, like, for the first time, because he's always been, like, blinded by this crush, and he doesn't really have that anymore. So now he's, like, noticing, like, flaws.
Yeah.
And he's like, what the heck? He's like, how did I like this girl? So I wrote down 4 things that he noticed. 1, kind of rude. That's the first thing.
Fair.
2, she chews with her mouth open. He thinks that's nasty. Yeah. He hates it. He's like, I can't believe you. Like, why did I ever... He hates it. 3, she leaves her socks everywhere.
Okay, James.
Well, like, he's like, because she, like, sometimes hangs out up in their room. He's like, her socks are here now.
Okay,
in the common room.
That is kind of weird.
It's very weird. he's like, it's just so freaking weird. 4, she's always making sarcastic and, like, really kind of mean comments, and it's not, like, timely and kind of funny. It's all the time, and he's just really annoyed by it. He's like, she just can't, like, be serious, and it's just, like, a lot.
She can't be serious.
She'll never be serious. And so he's thinking about all this when he's on his Monday morning run, you know, just slowly kind of getting frustrated. And then when he comes back into the common room, Lily is there. She woke up early, just, you know, for some reason.
He's like, pick up your socks.
And as usual, she comes in and she's, like, super sarcastic and is like, well, what have you been doing or something? And he's just like, I'm done. Like, I can't. And he's like, why are you like this? And he's like, gee, thanks, Lily. Like, thanks for that. And she's like, wow, okay, you're rude. And she's like, where have you been? He's been like, I was on a run. And she's like, wow, I actually forgot that you did that. I just forgot that you're a total prick obsessed with your looks. And he's like, oh my gosh. And he looks at her.
That was uncalled for.
He looks at her and he tells her to F off. And she's like,
yeah.
Did James
Potter
you
James.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But anyway, so then she's like, what the heck? Did James just tell me that? Like, so confused. A little concerned, and then he just goes upstairs, and she's like, okay, so we're gonna fight now. Okay, I see how it is. But yeah, anyway. So then upstairs, did we set a timer?
No.
Frick! I was just wondering if it was just... Okay, it's still recording. Alright. So, this first bullet point just says, okay, side note, but Remus is a nighttime showerer, and I will not be elaborating. And I stand by that.
Fair.
Cool. Anyway, so James walks upstairs, and he's, like, kind of stomping in, and he, like, immediately gets in the shower, and, like, just... he's just being all angry James, and, like, the boys at this point are, like, kind of getting up. Like, they kind of are getting up by the time he comes back from his run. And, they're like, what the heck is going on with James? Like, he's usually so happy after his runs. Like, what happened? You know, but then they all just, like, start getting ready, and, like, Peter ends up going in for a shower, and this is what typically happens. And so then this is, like, Sirius and Remus, like, kind of alone, like, in the mornings, and Sirius is, like, awake and, like, kind of sleepy or whatever. Remus is dead asleep.
Yeah.
And this happens every morning where Sirius is like, I'm gonna be so cute, and I'm, like, gonna wake him up in, like, you know, a cute way or something. And Remus is just like, yeah, no, I feel that. I know. So he's like, you know, like, I don't know, like, goes and, like, tries to give him, like, a forehead kiss or something to get up, and he's just out, and he's like, cool. But he still, like, tries to get him up, because, or else Remus is just gonna sleep through the entire frickin' day. But, you know, he'll, like, try and, like, tell him something. He's like, okay, just listen to me. And he just talks. And then he looks over and Remus asleep again. Yeah. And he's like, oh my gosh. But yeah. So then...
I'm feeling this. I relate.
Yes. So anyway, he's doing this whole shenanigan, as he does every single morning. And then we learn that James apparently likes to take very short showers when he's angry. Because then he's, like, immediately back out. And then Sirius is like... awkwardly walks away from Remus's bed, like, I wasn't doing anything. This is, hi. Good morning. And Sirius is like, okay, like, James, are you good?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's...
He's like, that was a quick shower.
I'm getting a little concerned with your vibe. And he's like, did you, like, did something happen on your run? The thought of something bad happening on the run.
Maybe he got, like, hit by a deer or something. I don't know.
I was thinking more like he, like, twisted an ankle and he's just upset. He's just mad for the whole rest of the day.
Okay.
But he ran into a deer is also very sensible. Why would he be angry about that?
I don't know. Why would he be angry about twisting his ankle?
I don't know, man. Anyway, point is, he's like, are you okay? Like, something happened? And James was like, no. And he's like, I'm going to have breakfast. And then he just leaves. And that's the only thing that woke Remus up. Because he's like, what the heck just happened? And then, like, yeah. But then eventually all three of them get ready. And they kind of go downstairs. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they kind of filled in Peter. And they're like, what's happening? And then they see Lily. And she's looking all offended. And they're like, okay, what is with everyone this morning? Like, y'all are just really in a mood. And she's like, I'm fine. I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, oh gosh, like, what is this? Okay. So yeah, then breakfast is weird. Marlene and James, like, sit together, and Marlene's, like, trying to talk to him about, like, Quidditch tryouts that are, like, the next week. And he's just like, I don't even care. Like, I don't... And they're like, what is happening with James? Like, what is this? And so...
That's concerning.
Yeah. And then, like, Marlene is finally like, okay, dude, what is wrong? Like, what is happening? And he looks at Lily, and he's like, Lily could tell you. And then they all look at Lily, and they're like, what did you do to James? And she's like, okay, literally, what did I do? I don't understand. He's like, what did you do? You did this whole... And then it's like a whole argument. And he's like, you just have been treating me horribly, even though I've been trying to be your friend. And hello, like, we are, like, I'm part of the package here. You can't just decide to be friends with Remus and Sirius and Peter and not me. He's very upset.
It's true, though.
It really is true. And then she's like, okay, don't even go there. Like, you had this whole thing with Snape for years, and you're just expecting me to, like, get over this? Like, what has happened? All this stuff. It's a very intense argument, and Minnie ends up having to come over and, like, separate them, because, like, Lily's pulled out her wand. It's, like, ready to go. And I just want to picture the entire Great Hall at this point. It's like, okay, so this lasted 1 week. We're doing good.
Dang.
Yeah, so that's a lot of fun. So this day of lessons,
they have a bunch of lessons together. They're in like a 5-person class together.
Not today.
Okay.
But no, so they're in charms, and that's with everybody. And Lily accidentally ends up charming James's ears to grow like 6 times their regular size, accidentally. And James doesn't feel like it's an accident.
Yeah.
And then because Lily's like has she's like a prefect and everything, and she's like, oh my gosh, Professor Flitwick, I'm so sorry. James, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do this at all. Trust me. And Flitwick's like, oh, of course. Like, just go to the hospital wings, James. And she just goes, and she's like carrying his stuff out or something, or like hands it to him and is like, maybe now you could actually listen to me for once.
Oh my.
And he's like, oh my gosh. But he just leaves, thank goodness. But yeah, then it's like on at that point. And yeah, Remus and Sirius and Peter, they're like, what do we do? We've never had friends like fight or like have beef with each other.
This is a very quick turnaround.
Yeah, and they're like, literally, what even happened? And so then next, Lily and Remus have arithmancy. And Remus is like, Lily, what the heck happened? He's like, what is happening? And so she tells her side of the story, which is that James told her to F off for no apparent reason. And she's like, I literally didn't do anything. He's like,
James would not just say that to you for no reason.
He's like, okay, Lily, first of all, you have not been, like, nice to him at all. Like, at all. And she's like, why should I be nice? It's, like, a whole thing. But he's like, Lily.
Oh, my gosh.
He's like, Lily, we gotta calm down, though.
He's like, this is my best friend here.
I know. He's like, again, it is literally a package deal. You can't just, like, you know, not get along with one of us. And she's like, fine. And he's like, y'all just really didn't have to fight. And also, like, cursing his ears. And she's like, that was an accident. And he's like,
no.
He's like, was it? And she's like, I didn't mean to make them that big. I promise. And he's like, Lily. But yeah, so Lily eventually promises, she's like, okay, I'll be fine if he's fine. Okay? She's like, I won't say anything if he doesn't say anything. And that's it. And you know what? It was okay. He's like, you know what? Fine, sure. Good enough to get us through the rest of the day. So then in Muggle Studies, which is happening at the same time, with James and Sirius, Sirius is like, okay.
He's also like,
what? You mean to tell me that you talked about this girl for literally like 5 years?
Our entire friendship.
And then suddenly, you're like, nah. He's like, as soon as we become friends with her and you start actually hanging out, you decide that she's the devil. He's like, I just need to understand your thought process here, dude, because I'm not getting it. And James is like, okay, well, high-key, she's a jerk, and I didn't realize it before now. And he's like, okay, what? Like, she's been so sweet to all of us. He's like, yeah, to all of you, and she's been a jerk to me, and, like, all this. Yeah, it's a whole thing. What else did I say about this? But yeah, he's like, this is definitely a you problem, because you were all too happy to be friends with her last year, and now suddenly, you know, he's like, this is a you issue. Okay, you gotta figure this out. And James is like, fine, I'll be fine to her, as long as she's fine to me. They come to that conclusion. So next up is herbology.
Don't they say... Lily is a jerk, honestly.
Lily gets her... James had his moment of being a jerk last year. Lily has her moment of being a jerk this year. They're perfect for each other. You know, it's how it works.
Don't be mean to James.
Don't be mean to James, guys. So anyway, but let's not talk about Lily and James and herbology, because we'll take a little break from them.
Good.
Let's talk about Remus and Sirius, because they're the only ones that don't have this class of, like, the whole gang. And we just need some cute Wolfstar stuff, because I haven't talked about them in a while. But yeah, so they both, like, end up meeting in the library, and they're just, like, they both just talk about what happened in each of their classes.
Like, what
they're
is
like,
going
okay,
on?
so, like, if they both agree, then everything should be okay. But we don't trust them at all. But yeah, so then they kind of move on from that, and they start just, you know. Anyway, Sirius has decided that he's like, I'm going to read again, because I actually like reading. If you pick the book, and if it's a good book, and if you like it, and I know that you like it, then I can read.
Good books are usually good, I will say.
Well, it's not if it's a good book, it's if it's a book that Remus likes, you know? Because then he can read it. Listen, he's a little in love. It's okay. But they're like, but Remus is like, sure, like, I'll give you a random book that, like, I like. He gives him, like, an encyclopedia.
He's like, yeah, bet.
And Sirius is like, this is fascinating.
I love literature.
Yeah, so basically their new dates have become just in the library, just reading, and it's just, like, a solid time. They could technically, like, go into the dorms or, like, anywhere that's a little bit more private, but they are very much overthinkers, and they're like, if we go anywhere together, everyone's gonna know.
It's not that we've been friends.
I know. And, like, it's very much, and, like, also, the Marauders would just disappear a lot.
Yeah.
And, like, that's perfectly normal. But now they're like, we can't do that. Like, people are gonna notice. Nobody would notice. Ever. But yeah, so they're just a little paranoid. It's,
they notice that, like, why are they always just chilling in the library?
Because at least then they're, like, seen. And also, yes, them being in the library is, like, the most suspicious thing in the world. They think they're being very slick. They're not at all being slick. But because they're so not, then everybody's like, oh, they're up to something spooky, and it's very Marauder. So it, like, still is in character, but they, like, it's a double, yeah, it's a whole thing. Those poor boys. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to, that's, like, basically this whole scene, except for, Peter and James end up coming back from horology, and they're like, so how'd it go? And Peter's like, it was a very quiet class. And apparently he just sat in between them the whole time, and neither of them spoke to anybody else, including Peter, who was in between. And Peter had to sit away from his friends the whole time and just kind of sit in between.
That is a good friend right there.
I know. He's like, I did not like it, but it was quiet. Good. Yeah, but anyway, so now we're gonna go to Lily, who's in potions. And she's vibing. I need to double check and make sure that last week I said it was with Bonnie and Amory.
Or maybe it was Dorcas.
It was Dorcas and Amory, not Bonnie and Amory.
Okay.
At least I checked this time instead of the whole Regulus fiasco.
He's just always been in fourth year.
He's always been in fourth year. But anyway, so Dorcas and Amory are vibing in potions with Lily. It's a good time. And today they're all working on, like, a potion together. And Lily ends up hearing about Dorcas's new crush, because she and Amory are, like, talking about it and, like, dishing about it. She's like, ooh, like, what's going on? And this has no relevancy to the plot. I just really like having this random side plot, which is that Dorcas's crush is a girl and also is Melody Duke. That girl who's, like, the PDA head girl.
Oh, no. Not her.
And Amory is like, girl.
He's like, no.
She's like, you do not have a crush on Melody Duke. And Dorcas is like, I don't mean to, okay? I can't control this. She's like, it wasn't my intention. She's like, it's not only a straight girl who's taken, but it's Melody. It is the queen of, like, making out with her boyfriend in the middle of the hallway. And she's like, I don't know. I don't like it. And they're all just, like, totally dying by the end of class because they just keep on making jokes about it. And they're like, do you wish you were Irian? She's like, no. She's like, I don't ever want to do that. I just think she's a nice girl, okay? Yeah, I don't know. I just like the thought of somebody having a crush on that girl. Because it's like, you can't do anything about that. But no, like, and Dorcas knows. She knows that it's a stupid crush. She knows. She's like, I can't, like...
She's like, here we are.
Yeah, she doesn't mind that, like, people are joking and teasing her about it, because she's like, it's the stupidest crush I've ever had in my life.
She's like, if someone else told me this, I would be making fun of it.
I know. But yeah, so anyway, because they're, like, talking and, like, having this whole dish sesh during potions, the other two are just, like, not really paying attention to, like, actually doing the potion that much, which basically means that Lily ended up doing the whole thing. But she doesn't, like, mind. Yeah. She's like, I like potions. Like, this is fine. But then, after class, Professor Slughorn is like, okay, so I probably should have asked you this way earlier, but just after seeing you, like, freaking beat the thing last class, like, you won the competition, brewed a perfect draft of Living Death, and then also today, you did your entire potion by yourself, even though you're supposed to do it in groups of 3, he's like, okay, so, like, you should come to my dinner party on Wednesday night and be, like, a part of this kind of group that I have of, like, really good students. And she's like, oh, shoot. Okay. And she's like, I guess, like, yeah, like, sounds kind of dope.
Yeah.
And then she
doesn't
tells...
love a good dinner party.
I know, and then she tells Dorcas and Amory, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're in the Slug Club. And she's like, that's a horrible name for a club.
I thought the Marauders were bad.
She's like, what is it with everybody's horrible names? But they're like, no, but, like, that's so cool. Like, you know, it's usually just, like, Slytherins who end up getting in it because, you know, that's his house or whatever.
Ice cream.
So then they get back to the common room, and they're all like, all right, guess what? Lily made it into the Slug Club, and everybody's like, oh, Lily, let's go, and they're like, yeah, it's like a whole thing,
yeah.
And, like, you know, she's just, again, not used to, like, all of her friends, like, celebrating her accomplishments, like, this much, like, it's insane to her, but everybody does that, everybody. Except James.
Oh, I knew it. James was like, congrats.
He doesn't even say anything. And then Remus is like, James, you're going to congratulate Lily on this accomplishment. And he's like, why? And he's like, because she's our friend and it's a cool thing that she did. And he's like, fine. Good job on the Slug Club. Really cool.
He's like, I'm so proud of you.
He's like, I'm so proud of you, Evans. I'll just bow down at your feet if you'd like.
Oh my.
And she's like...
she's like, thank you.
Yeah, she's
it
like...
means a lot.
Yeah, that's what... I literally wrote down, thanks, James. Means a lot. And James says, oh my gosh, there she goes again. Literally, what did I do? I congratulate her. And then she's like, oh my gosh, what the heck? That was clear. It begins a whole other argument. And the others are just sick of it. And Sirius eventually just goes, that's it. Boys' dorm. Everyone.
He's like, time out.
Literally. So, the next scene is called Boys' Dorm. Everyone.
Everyone.
And by everyone, I mean the boys plus Marlene and Lily. And possibly Dorcas and Amory, depending on the mood. I don't know.
Depending on your mood.
Yeah, whatever you feel like. Anyway, so the gang pulls up to the room. Everybody, like, sits down.
They're all, like, crammed in.
They're all, like, crammed in on all of the beds, and they're just sitting here. And Remus... And they sit everyone down, except for Lily and James, and they're in the center of the room. And Remus sits down, he's like, okay, you guys have to apologize to each other. And they're like, no, we're not doing this. That's stupid. And he's like,
we're taking a vote. Who thinks they should apologize?
Literally. That's very much the vibe of this whole thing. So he's like, nope. He's like, yeah, let's take a vote. Who thinks that they need to apologize? Everybody raises their hand. And he's like, who thinks Lily needs to apologize? James and everyone raises their hand. He's like, who thinks James needs to? You know, it's the same thing. So he's like, okay, let's start off with something simple then. He's like, you guys need to apologize to us for ruining our breakfast, for embarrassing us downstairs just now and all that. And they actually, you know, they do apologize for that. Lily's like, okay, yeah, I am sorry. Like, that was kind of sucky. We shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And James says the same thing. And then they're like, okay, also, now you have to, like, bring Peter in front of them. He's like, you have to apologize for Peter for ruining his herbology today because he couldn't even sit with his friends. And they're like, we're sorry, Peter. That was rude. And it's like this whole thing. And then they're like, and then he's like, okay, now you guys have to apologize to each other. And they're both just like, no. They're like, no, we're not doing that. Like, we're sorry for the other stuff, but we're not apologizing. It takes, like, a full hour for this to go down. But, like, what ended up happening is, like, Sirius and Remus, like, tag-teamed this. And they're like, Lily, what has James done that makes you feel hurt? And then she, like, goes off and it's like, James, do you have anything to apologize about that regarding that? Some of it was no, some of it was, yeah, I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Oh, no, James, come on, I was rooting for him.
They both are doing this, though. It is very mutual. Lily is saying the same stuff. She's like, I'm sorry it hurt your feelings when I cursed your ears to be big today.
I'm sorry it hurt your feelings.
Like, it takes a while to get a genuine apology. But it does end up happening. They both end up apologizing, but it's mostly just because they want to go to dinner, and not deal with this anymore. But yeah, if anybody wants to draw fan art of this scene, I really need it in my life. And that's all I'm gonna say on the matter. Just all of them, like, sitting in the dorm, all on the bed.
They're all just like,
you guys have to
they're all
apologize.
just, like, looking so done.
I know. But yeah.
There's also the Raven there.
No, this isn't the boys' dorm.
It's there. It's included in everyone.
Okay, sure. Marlene just carries it around.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Okay. Yeah, so anyway. So the next couple days end up passing somewhat calmly, but mostly because Remus and Sirius are, like, vaguely threatening Lily and James at all times. Like, all times. But yeah, so they kind of almost get along, kind of. They're still kind of snappy. It's just so weird. But no, and, like, now it's like James is, like, literally in the dorms and he's, like, complaining about how he used to have a crush on Lily. He's like, I can't believe that I ever liked her. Like, she's so weird and mean, and she's like all this stuff. And literally, Remus,
they're like, yeah, we know.
We're like literally stop. They're like, what? She's human and it is a Gryffindor. Like, what do you? We all get angry here, bro. But anyway, so yeah, Remus ends up complaining to Marlene. He's like, somehow this is worse than when he told us that he liked her. Like, all of the stuff about him, like, being in love with her. He's like, somehow this is worse. She's like, nothing could be worse than that. And then she hears him one day and she's like, oh my gosh, it's worse. But yeah. So all generally kind of goes kind of well. That's kind of resolving itself. Not really, but, like, to the point where they're not actively fighting, so it's okay.
To the point where it doesn't ruin Peter's day.
Yeah, poor Peter. But yeah, and then Wednesday happens.
To the Slug Club.
Yes. But yeah, so Lily enters the room. There's this big, circular table in the middle. There's food, plenty of chairs. She looks around. She does not know a single person here. It's a lot of Slytherins. Well, I guess she, like, kind of knows them, but she's
Regulus,
like not like
the fourth year in the flesh.
You can't spoil this.
What?
Yeah, so she's like, she looks around. There's a lot of Slytherins, a lot of popular kids, and she knows that, like, every single person in this room is, like, rich. And she's like, nice. So then they're, like, going around the table and, like, doing the whole introductions thing, because it's, like, the first time that they're, like, meeting in the year. Yeah. And it's like everybody goes around and has something, like, incredibly interesting to say. It is like,
they're like, I went to somewhere.
Well, they're like, my dad is, like, the head of a ministry department, and, like, my cousin is, chaser for the Holyhead Harpies, and, my dad is famous for being a vampire slayer, and, like, all the things that, like, are cool. I don't know. And then she doesn't realize that she knows anybody there, or that, like, that she really, I guess that she really just knows anybody there, until, like, the quiet boy that, like, hasn't said much, like, looks up and starts talking, and she's like, oh my gosh, it's Regulus. What the heck? She's like, that's just, what? She's never really had any opportunity to, like, interact with Regulus. She's vaguely aware of his existence, but
it's not like they have, like, classes together.
No, they wouldn't have classes together, and they're not in the same house, and she's just never. She's like, especially now that she's, like, been friends with Sirius, she's like, he's a tiny clone, but, like, so different, and it's just weirding me out.
Like the Babs.
It's like the Babs. It's like when you meet Matt and then Nate. Oh my gosh. But yeah. But yeah, so, like, he introduces himself and everything, and then it finally, like, gets to Lily, and she's, like, one of the last ones. And thank goodness, like, Slughorn kind of, like, helps her out and like hypes her up, and she's like, she's the best person in the class, she's better than any of you guys in brewing this potion, like all this stuff. And he's like helping her out, and like thank goodness it's like getting to the point where she's like, okay, maybe I don't even like have to say anything, you know, about like my family or anything. And then this freaking dude sitting next to Regulus is like, what do your parents do? And she's like, thanks.
She's like, yeah. You got it.
So, this is also when I finally decided what her parents do. And she tells them all that her dad owns a pastry shop. Isn't that cute? Yeah. And everybody's like, cool.
There's gotta be like wizard pastry
Well,
shops.
I know that it's like not like the weirdest thing, but it's like, you know, they're all expected to come from like these things. Oh. And then probably somebody's like, and they're muggles, right? She's like, yep.
She's like, no, we're actually purebloods. Didn't you know?
Didn't you know?
We are the Sacred 28.
All 28 of the families.
She's like, the rest of you can leave.
Yeah, facts. But yeah, the whole like meal is just uncomfortable for her. She like thought that she's like, I've been in this wizarding world for like 6 years. I feel like I should know things, but like they're talking about stuff. She's like, what the heck, is like barely knew anything about the ministry before tonight, and like now what is even happening? So she like doesn't know how to contribute to the conversation, and she's like, okay, even like Regulus is like, especially Regulus is like talking and like, you know, contributing to the conversation, and she's like absolutely fascinated with the way that he speaks, because she's like, it's just opposite from Sirius, and it's just not computing with her. She's like, this is so weird. But yeah, so then it's not fun, but it's not the worst, and so she just kind of leaves.
She like the food was good.
She's like, the food was sweet, but no, when they're leaving, like everybody else is like talking to each other, nobody's talking to her, and then she's gonna go towards the Gryffindor place, and then Regulus is like, yo.
He's like, bring me a pastry. It's like, hit me up.
So no. But no, he like tells his friend to like go on. And also the person next to him and like the person who was like, what do your parents do? It's Barty Crouch Jr. Anyway, I like having him here. We're gonna continue though, because he's not very important right now. But so Regulus kind of tells Barty to like, he's like, go, yep.
I gotta grab my shoe.
No, but like he very much tries to avoid people, and then he's like, you're friends with Sirius now, right? And she's like, yeah, I guess. I don't even know at this point. And he's like, and so then he like, you know, reaches into his robe and he pulls out like a scroll, and he's like, this is from our mother. And she's like, okay. He's like, and he just hands it to her, like she doesn't even say anything. And he's like, let him know that it's very important, and he's not supposed to burn it this time like he has with all the other stuff. That's why she had to give it to me. And she's like, okay. And then he just walks away.
He's like, bye.
And she's like, oh, okay.
And then he calls back, bring me a pastry.
Yes, and then that can be in your version.
Yeah.
You know, that's Emma's version, y'all. But Lily gets back to the dormitory at like about 10, which is like curfew, so like everybody's up in their beds and stuff, or like just in their dorms and everything. And she's like, okay, but like I know Sirius is not asleep, so she's like just gonna go up and like hand it to him or whatever. But then as she's like walking to the stairs, like right as she gets to the bottom, like James is coming down, and they like run into each other. And they've, like, been civil to each other for, like, 2 days.
They just kind of, like, stop, and they're just, like...
Two days. And, yeah, he stops, and he's like, what are you doing? And she's like, taking this to Sirius. And James, like, looks at it. He like, takes it, and he's like, what is it? And Lily's like, she was almost like, none of your business. What are you thinking here? Almost, but she didn't. She was like...
This kind of is James' business.
I know. She's like, his brother told me to give it to him. He's like... oh. And then but then James kind of like goes past her, and he like goes and is looking for something in the common room. He's like, well, I'll just take it up to him. I just gotta grab my essay, so, you know, I'll just do it. And then, you know, she should have left. And then as she's leaving, James out of the blue is like, when he gave it to you, did it sound like it was something bad? And she was like, nope, he just, I don't know though, but he just said it was important. And he's like, okay. And then Lily's like, okay, I'm gonna go. And then she's like, they don't talk to each other at all, do they? And he's like, no. And then, again, where they should go. And then James is like, so how was the Slug Club? And she's like, good, fine. And James is not buying it. And she's like, and he's just like, gives her this look, and she's like, okay, what? And he's like, you make it look like it was horrible. And Lily's like about to get offended. And he's like, I'm not being rude, just making an observation. You look like you had a miserable time. And she's like, yeah, and what did she say? She's like, he's like, I've just never known anybody who's gone to these parties, and I just want to know if they're fun and if I'm missing out, okay? That's all I want to know. And then, you know, he's about to go up, and all she says is, yeah, I was the only Muggle born there. And I was one of 3 girls. And James is like, dang, that sucks. And she's like
crazy.
And she looks at him and she's like, is he being sarcastic right now? And he's like, no, I mean it. I really thought Slug would be smarter than that. And then he just goes upstairs. And Lily's like, well, what the frick was that conversation? Because that seems like it was good. And she's like, what is happening? And that's the end of the episode. But yeah, those are the vibes.
Not good vibes.
Okay, no, actually, this is my favorite era of Lily and James. Because I just love James suddenly losing a crush on Lily and them trying to, like, interact after that. It's my favorite thing. And it's gonna go on for a little bit. It won't be as argumentative past this point, but it's still a good time. I like it, so.
Poor Peter.
Poor Peter. He just has to sit in between them and herbology, and it's like, I don't want to be here. I want to talk with my plant friends. His friends who like plant. It's not, the plants are not his, oh, they might be. Do you have anything else to add?
That was a lot.
It was certainly an episode.
They're just both so frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing to write is frustrating things. You should know this by now. We've been doing this for a while, Emma. All right. Well, I have a pounding headache, and I need to eat food. And we have food downstairs. Pretty rad-tastic, if I do say so myself. I did just hit the whoa. But don't worry about it. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I really appreciate it. Big shout out to Benji Wilson for the music and Ren the Metamorphomagist for the cover art. And I will see you next time. Bye! Oh my gosh.
That's scary.
Yes.